Zillow's fight with Compass escalates as ban on some listings roll out to the Bay Area. We've got a major showdown between Zillow and Compass happening in real time. What does that look like? Who's going to win? Who's the heavy favorite? Let's get into it. Here we go. So essentially what you have is Compass wants to roll out pocket listings, which in my MLS, Northwest Multiple Listing Service, is illegal. It's a violation of our terms of agreement. You can't do pocket listings. Now, our list, we're one of those areas. It's an exception. You can do these elsewhere, but Compass is saying, hey, we're going to do them. And Zillow is saying, that's fine. Any of those listings you do that on, we will basically blackball them from our system. So you will not be able to put them on Zillow and get more exposure. So kind of what it comes down to is, does this benefit the seller? Compass says so. Zillow says no. Where's the truth? Where's the truth? Let's do a little reading. War between home brokerage Compass and Zillow is heating up, with the real estate website moving to ban some of Compass Bay Area listings. Zillow spokesperson confirmed that it's already begun sending out warnings to Bay Area agents who market private listings, also known as pocket listings, publicly. The escalation appears to be aimed squarely at a new program from Compass, the largest brokerage in the region that allows home buyers to gradually move pocket listings from pocket to the public market, to the MLS. While the brokerage attracts new clients with the promise of private listings they won't get anywhere else. This is getting a lot of publicity for Compass. But what does it do for the seller? So you're attracting new clients with the promise of private listings they won't get anywhere else. Yes, but then you're also not exposing it to the market. I'm a big believer in exposing it to as many people as you can. Am I a fan of Zillow? No. I think they've done the real estate industry dirty, and they basically soak up our data and then sell it back to us in the form of leads. It's weak. I've had so few sales transactions. I don't know that we've ever had a sales transaction here at Summit Properties Northwest that has happened because of Zillow. Typically, it's an agent finds it in the MLS, goes and writes it up. It's not that, you got consumers. Consumer might say, hey, check this one out, but it typically comes up in a search as well. And from that standpoint, getting maximum exposure is what it's all about, because that's what gets maximum dollar for the seller. So I'm not huge on sharing data with Zillow. I don't think that's necessary. I don't think it, it doesn't do anybody any huge favors, but it's one more way to get information out on a property, right? And so many people window shop on Zillow. That's what all the eyeballs are. They're window shoppers. They're not serious. When they get serious, they'll be like, hey, I might have found this one on Zillow, but can you check it out in the MLS? I want to see what the real numbers are. Conversation with Zillow is a starting point. It's like the Zillow's estimate. It's a starting point. But how many banks will lend based on a Zestimate? Zero, none, because it's so inaccurate. Zestimates are so inaccurate, along with a lot of the data that Zillow has on their website. Zillow plans to start banning non-compliant listings on June 30th. The spokesperson declined to say how many warnings have been issued. It's unclear whether the corporate battle will actually make homes cheaper or easier to buy. Doesn't really have anything to do with that. And it's not going to make homes cheaper. You've got a supply issue. So it's unclear whether the corporate battle will actually make homes cheaper or easier to buy, especially in a market where seven-figure prices are the norm and homeownership is a pipe dream for many. That is absolutely true. Both companies are trying to secure their place in the housing market at a time when economic uncertainty and high mortgage rates are what's killing so many buyers. Because you look at the home payment on a seven-figure home, $1 million at 2.75% interest rate versus 7% interest rate, or 6.5%, or even 5%. drastically different numbers, right? And so when you've got this lack of affordability combined with high mortgage rates, which we still have, it's been a tough market since July of 2022 for buyers to get a foothold, to feel encouraged. Hey, maybe I actually can afford a home. So it's been, we've had slow times in the real estate industry, just slow times. And mortgage rates are making home buyers cautious. I have concern about being able to make payments on this home. What if I lose my job? I don't have much in the way of reserves. This thing is so expensive. Look at how much taxes are. Just a whole bunch of buyer objections, and none of them are being rapidly overturned. If neither company budges, buyers could have a harder time seeing the full range of available homes, while sellers might not get as many views on their properties. The pocket listing thing, it's a great way for a brokerage or an individual to kind of control their own little market. It's a great way to do that. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't provide overall exposure to get that bidding war going, to getting that home in a position where you've got multiple people interested. And from that standpoint, I'm kind of a no-go on pocket listings. I'm a no-go on an off-market deal. Let's do an off-market deal. I just can't be hassled with getting my house ready and putting it on the market. Well, just put it on the market then, because you're going to get more people, more eyeballs in the MLS. If there's a buyer out there and they aren't looking in the MLS, they don't have a broker, they don't, they're not going that route, it's kind of like they're not serious. Because if you're not perusing listings in the MLS, you're not a real buyer. Trying to buy something off market, is that really the best way you can kind of peruse what you got going on? Compass said the pocket listings option benefits both buyers and sellers. Buyers who go through the brokerage can learn about a listing before their competitors, allowing them to make an offer before the property hits the open market. Yes, but the flip side to that means that since it doesn't open up the property to the general market, it's not a market transaction, meaning it doesn't fit the definition of market value from the standpoint of, hitting the open market. What it does is it doesn't create exposure for the seller. It shrinks the market. And that's why a buyer could get the property, because there isn't enough eyeballs on it that you normally would have if you stuck it in the MLS. Sellers can soft launch their home and fish for early offers while they stage and price their property. Well, what if they put it on overpriced? Is there going to be any record of that? No, probably not. I am a firm believer in adequately pricing your properties at that magic spot, trying to pick that magic spot, get it on the market, and go from there. None of this dicking around with other stuff, right? Company previously estimated that about a third of its listings use the program, with the vast majority eventually entering the open market. Because why wouldn't you expose your property to the most buyers out there? Why wouldn't you do that? I just don't want to screw around with getting it on the market. Screw around with that, because that's where you're going to get the most money. Take whatever time you need to put the money into it to get it to the open market, put it on there. That's how this game works. Anything else to me is just a divergence and much ado about nothing. Zillow was unhappy about the policy, framing it as anti-consumer. Well, it's anti-Zillow, because now Zillow doesn't get to get those eyeballs on their website because that listing isn't there. So they're staging it as anti-consumer, but it's actually anti-third party, stealing our data and selling it back to us. A home needs to be listed fully publicly for sellers to get the best price, the company argued. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it needs to be on Zillow. Period. Full stop. It just doesn't. The new program also means potential buyers have to go through Compass website to see the company's private exclusives, which aren't immediately shared to Zillow's data feed. That's the war, is Zillow doesn't have access to the data. That's the big battle. Compass, its competitors argued, is simply seeking to dominate a larger share of the market at its clients' expense. I don't disagree with that because you've got a situation where you don't have the maximum number of potential buyers looking at it. Are you with a Compass agent? They've got a pocket listing we'd like to look at. You don't have that doesn't scream out all eyes, are able to search this. It just doesn't. You've limited the scope of those who can view the property. And as a result, arguably, you've taken away a component of market value, which is exposure on the market. So in April, Zillow presented an ultimatum. You have to comply. Any private listing that was marketed publicly will be banned from its website. Okay, we're going to ban you from our website. We're going to cut our own. We're going to shoot ourselves in the foot because now you're guaranteed not to have that listing on your site, shrinking the number of listings that Zillow has, and then further shrinking your revenue, shrinking the ability for advertisers to advertise with you, that whole thing. So is that the smartest thing? They're having a standoff. They're having a standoff. If you do that, we're going to do this. Preventing it from being seen by hundreds of millions of users unless it's shared with other brokerages and websites within one business day. You got 1 day to comply. Is somebody going to have that stopwatch going? Click, click. Oh, you got 24 hours. 24 hours. Better have it in the system. And while Zillow's definition of public marketing includes typical strategies, such as social media posts and open houses, it also bars brokerages from advertising that they have private listings available, which Compass does. Compass is going a different direction. I'm actually kind of glad to see Compass doing this because I think it threatens Zillow a little bit. I've never been a big fan of Zillow, mainly because of my appraisal background. I own an appraisal company and a real estate brokerage. And from the appraisal background, I've had so many conversations. Well, Zillow says that my house is worth, and invariably, it's way off. It's typically way high, the conversations we have, because otherwise we wouldn't be having these conversations. And so as a certified appraiser, where we come in and we use actual data, whereas Zillow uses an algorithm and kind of looks at the data, but they don't go inside of the home. They don't drive the neighborhood. They don't know any of that. They're just using an algorithm. So to have all these conversations over the past 30 years or however long Zillow's been in business, having to defend using comparable sales versus this number that sometimes Zillow apparently pulls out of its backside, because how else do they get these numbers? And if you're a real estate broker, you know what I'm talking about. You're like, this estimate is what? It's how much? That doesn't make any sense. This thing's not worth having anything near to that. Or, wow, really low on Zillow. What's the deal? Yeah, they got some glitch in their system, right? Each real estate agent gets 2 strikes, Zillow policy explains. If a third property from the same agent violates the company's policy, that home and any others after that will be banned from Zillow, as long as the listing broker remains the same. Listings that are already on Zillow or its sibling company, Trulia, won't be affected. This is just a whole bunch of stuff about territory on listings, isn't it? It's like, this is my listing. I can do what I want. Despite Zillow's hardline stance, Compass is showing little sign of backing down, as I don't think they should. Let's have a court case on it, right? Let's take it to court. Somebody's going to sue somebody. Compass founder and CEO Robert Redfin still takes the occasional pot shot at Zillow on social media, and the company has even invited real estate agents from other brokerages to visit its office to view a physical book of its private listings. Okay. But here in Washington, in our Northwest Multiple Listing Service, if you put a list, and this has happened to us, if you put a listing out on like your Facebook page and say coming soon, massive fine. Almost an instantaneous fine. We had a situation where another real estate agent turned the agent that worked for Summit in for having a coming to market listing on their Facebook page. And the MLS was, they were pretty strict. And I think, got a pretty big fine. Most of it was deferred, but it was beyond a slap on the wrist. It was kind of like, oh, good Lord, that's kind of expensive. But they want to make sure that everybody gets their listings into the MLS because that's their terms of service. Compass framed the debate as one between choice and control. Spokesperson said that while Compass would be willing to work with Zillow on the company's policies, Zillow is using its monopoly to limit what homeowners can do with their property. Stakes for this industry are huge, and we're still in the beginning stages of this battle. Well, I'm sure we'll see it in court, right? Sure, we'll see it in court. But, these pocket listings, I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan. I mean, every now and then you'll have something come up and you'll work an off-market sale, and it's because property was probably on the market for a while. The market recognized, hey, it's overpriced. Sellers weren't willing to come down. Some time goes by, market gets better as far as the sellers go. Somebody brings a deal to the seller's agent and both parties go, yep, that works. That's what we wanted from the situation before. You're giving it to us now. We recognize we might be able to get a little bit more money since the market has changed favorably towards the seller, but we don't want to have to go through the rigmarole of putting it on the market. Every now and then we'll have a transaction like that. But this notion of, hey, we've got a pocket listing for you. Come take a look. Come take a look. I think you should stick your property on the MLS and let her rip. And that's what 99.98% of all listings have happen, right? Even these folks are, I could sell it by myself. Yeah, maybe, but you're also going to probably cost yourself more in commissions than if you would have just had a professional do it, from the standpoint of if you miss something, in the marketplace, you're literally just pulling out your handgun and shooting yourself in the foot. My standpoint as a seller, unless you've got such a cookie cutter property that you've got comps up and down the street that indicate your price, your value. And that is rare, especially here in the Pacific Northwest market and especially in San Francisco, because everything's kind of wonky. You go, well, this one's got a view. This one doesn't have a view. This one's on a big site. This one's on acreage. You got all kinds of varying levels of intricacy that make it difficult to price a property. So from that standpoint, put it on the market. Maybe you'll get that run up. Maybe you'll get that multiple offer situation. But holding it off just because Compass has this as a marketing thing, if you're a Compass agent, maybe this works for you. I've had agents tell me that, hey, it's actually pretty cool because then we can, if somebody's got a buyer, we can make that happen. I get that. But what about if there were 3 or 4 other buyers that want to make that happen? They bid, and all of a sudden that price goes up for your seller. I've never heard a seller say, you know what? I'd be happy accepting less. I'd be happy accepting 20% less for my home. I don't want a bidding situation. Can't be bothered. Now, everybody wants more money, right? More money. So from that standpoint, I'm not a fan of the pocket listing. But Compass, you do whatever you want. We'll see how it works out with Zillow. Zillow, you keep it hanging hard, banning those listings. It's one of those things. This will play out one way or the other. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.